Today I'm going to show you how to draw ginger hair. I'm using Polychromos for this tutorial. If you'd like to see a Prismacolor or Luminance version, that is available on my Patreon. I'll show you not only these 3 pencil brands and how to draw this ginger hair, but loads of other tutorials as well with real-time footage. Alright, so I've already got the Prismacolor version on the left. Let's make a start on the Polychromos. So what I'm looking for is the very lightest colour that I can see within the hair. And in this case, I would say that there is some very light yellow. So I've picked the cream pencil and I'm literally just trying to get some smooth, even coverage over the whole section that I'm drawing. To make this as smooth as possible, I'm working in little circular motions and I'm also pressing quite lightly. Although I am going over the area a reasonable amount of times because I do want to build up a goodly amount of colour. I'll explain why I need this a little bit later in the video. Although I do want to build up quite a bright base layer, I am still pressing very lightly, and I'm making that easy by holding the pencil further back. That stops me from being able to press too hard. Once I've built up my base layer, I then want to move on to the next lightest colour that I can see in my reference photo, and in this case that would be a pinky tone. Now you wouldn't think that there would be pink in this hair, but I can see it, so I'm going to draw it. For this I'm using cinnamon, and I'm once again working in these circular motions to try and build up some smooth colour. I'm not worrying at this point about any of the texture of the hair. This time though, I'm not putting colour over the whole of the section of hair. I'm only putting it over the parts where I can see the pink. So I'm basically only going over the darkest parts. I'm avoiding where I can see the yellow prominently. From here I want to keep working my way gradually through the colours, bit by bit getting darker. Here I'm using burnt ochre. I do want to use this colour slightly differently though. At this point, now that I'm beginning to get to the darker colours, I want to start building up the texture. I'm using this pencil with flicking motions, so I'm no longer using that circular motion. That was just for the base layer. I now want to be flicking the pencil back and forth to build up some of the strands. Now what's important to know here is that when you draw hair, you're not drawing individual strands perfectly. You want to draw clumps of hair instead. So this hair here is split into 3 main sections. There's 2 curls at the top and then the bottom is kind of one big section. And what I'm doing for each section is looking particularly at the direction that the hair is going. Within each section there is also darks and lights, so for example on this section I'm working on here, it's darker towards the top and then it gets lighter and then it's darker again towards the bottom. So all I need to do to build up those darker colours with this pencil is use these flicking motions more on the darker hair and less on the lighter hair. Although even on the lighter hair I do want to put some flicks through here because I don't want there to be no hair strokes. I don't want there to be no texture. When you're creating these flicks with the pencil, you want to be very, very lightly brushing the pencil against the paper to create them. And this will look far better if you have a nice sharp pencil. From here I want to keep working my way through the colours. So for example, next I'm going to use Bister, which is like a very light brown. When you actually look at ginger hair, it's mostly made up of a series of brown and there is a little bit of a kind of orangey tone in there, but it is mostly still browns. So on the most part, that's the colours I'm building up. So I'm going to do the same with the burnt sienna and also with the Van Dyke brown. And then I want to start adding in my darkest areas. Now I'm going to use the dark sepia for this. As a general rule, I don't like using black, particularly on hair. I think it looks a bit too harsh, whereas I can still get those dark values with the dark sepia without it looking quite as harsh. So with this pencil, I am still using the same flicking motions. Do note though that I'm not using a great deal of this. I do only want to use it on those very darkest parts. And then I now have a rough framework for my hair. So at this point, I need to start adjusting the colours. So I want to be looking at my drawing and working out which colours I think are missing. So for example, right now I think it looks a bit too pale and I want to brighten it up a bit more. So I'm going to go back to the burnt ochre and add some more of this in exactly the same way over the top of what I have. Next, I think it needs a bit more light shading building up, so I'm going to go back to the Bister. Although before I add in some light shading on the hair, I'm going to add some flyaway hairs first. I do think that this is the key to making realistic looking hair. So I've got a nice sharp pencil once again. It is so important to have a sharp pencil. And I'm just doing some very light flicks coming out from the hair. Now, on the most part, I'm going still in the direction of the hair, although I do add the odd random hair going in a random direction because that is what hair does. But on the most part, I'm putting these hairs randomly sticking out in the same direction. And then once I've done that, I can put some more shading over the top of the hair. The key here is to be building up these layers. We do want to be building up a lot of layers of pencil. From here, I want to add in some more of the cinnamon because I think the light areas are looking a bit too light. And then actually, I don't think the hair looks quite red enough. There's quite a lot of red tones that I feel I'm missing. So I'm going to use Sanguine, and I am going to use some light little circular motions here. I want this to be quite subtle and I want to use it very lightly over what I've already got. But when I do this, the hair flicks will still show through. I want to build up a little bit of this colour, but I don't want it to be so prominent that I need to build this up using flicking motions. So by using circular motions and lightly going over the top of what I've got, it's not losing the hair strands underneath this. They're still showing through, it's just lightly adjusting that colour. So I'm going to keep working through all of the colours that I've used previously, just gradually building up the vibrancy of this hair. And when I'm happy, I want to do what I think is the most important part. I'm going to use a craft knife. And what I want to be doing here is scraping some of this pencil away. Where I added those little flyaway hairs around the edge of the hair, I also want to be doing the same in between the sections. Now, I can't stress enough that you don't want to be pressing hard while you're doing this. You want to be very lightly scraping this away. We don't want to risk damaging the paper. And this comes back to the reason why I put down a reasonably strong base with the cream at the very beginning. Because where we're scraping this pencil away, it is therefore showing the very first colour. If I had started off with an extremely thin layer, or if I had started off with a much darker colour, this wouldn't work anywhere near as well. So I'm working my way down the hair, very lightly scraping away so I can have some of these baby hairs going from one section over another. And once I've done that, I am left with these, it kind of looks like little scratches on the paper. I personally like the drawing to be very smooth at the end, so I am going to use some of the cream to just lightly go over the top of these and it will just fill in those gaps. So now I'm going to do some last final tweaks and that's it. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it helped you with drawing ginger hair. If you'd like to watch another video where I draw a different colour of hair, check out the video here. Until then, happy drawing guys, and I'll see you in the next one.